Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Today is August 26, 2015. We're here at the Half Hollow Hills Community Library with William Lauter, a World War II Navy veteran from the submarine force. I'm a reference librarian here at the Half Hollow Hills Community Library. My name is Edna Sussman. Thank you so much, Bill, for being here and participating in our Veterans Testimonial Project, which is in collaboration with the Library of Congress's Veterans History Project. Thank you so much for being here.
Good.
Bill, where and when were you born?
Let's see, in the Bronx, Willis Avenue. Let's see, it's 10/4/21.
1921.
Yes.
And what were your parents' names and what did they do?
My mother was a housewife and had 4 children.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. My father.
What was her name?
Charlotte. Alice. I'm in good shape here. Her name was Clara.
Clara. Yeah. And your dad?
Ernest.
Ernest. And what did he do?
In just general, he was an immigrant.
Oh, from where?
From Denmark.
Denmark. And so your mom was born in Denmark too?
No,
oh.
She was born here
Uh-huh.
in the Bronx.
Okay. Now, did you have siblings?
Yes, I had 4.
What were their names?
Dorothy Ellen was a girl, and Bill was named after me, and Jim was
Oh, these are your
boy,
children?
yeah.
So what about your brothers or sisters? How many did you have?
2. 2 lived.
And what were their names?
Charlotte and Dorothy.
Okay. Now, did either of them serve in the military?
No.
Okay. And you said you had 4 children?
My wife and I had 4 children, yes.
And what were their names? Are their names?
Dorothy Ellen and William, James, and Martin.
Okay. Now, what did you do before you entered the service?
I was a page boy.
What did that involve? Where?
At the Public National Bank in Manhattan.
Okay.
And when I joined the service from that bank, the bank was later taken over by Bankers Trust Company.
I see. So, while you were in high school, you worked in the bank?
Yes, and went to school at night.
For what? Oh, you mean high school at night?
Yeah, at night, yes.
Oh, I see.
And left from there to go into the service.
Okay. Now, which branch of the military did you serve again?
In the Navy Submarine Force, 7th Fleet.
Did you enlist or were you drafted?
I enlisted.
You did. Why did you pick the Navy?
Because I like the Navy best.
Oh, yeah? Okay. What happened? Can you recall some memories of when you departed for training camp and during your early days of training?
I was trained at New London, Connecticut, and from there transferred to Diesel School in Chicago, Illinois, and after that back to New London, Connecticut to serve aboard the Bluefish. Now,
did you decide you wanted submarine
Yes,
work?
I did. Yes.
Oh, they let you pick that?
Yes.
Why did
they needed men at the time.
The
war was underway.
For the submarine corps?
Yeah.
Do you recall your instructors in basic training at all?
Not really, no.
Now, what sort of training did you have for working on the submarines?
They took us out on World War I submarines, and we were taught about diving and surfacing and
how to operate them, like driving.
What was our responsibility in operating it?
And what were your responsibilities for?
I was with the diesel lab.
What did that entail?
Work in the engine room, basically.
It must have been complicated.
It was complicated, but we had pretty good teachers and we were taught.
They taught you the whole thing.
Yeah.
So you actually helped them run. Did you run the submarine?
Yes, the men who would later serve had to learn all the shortcomings that might come at sea.
Uh-huh. How did you adapt to military life, like the regimen, the barracks, the food, social life? How was all that?
You had to agree with everybody else. Submarines are a little complicated.
How many men on a submarine?
159.
Wow. And you each had, how did you sleep?
Well, we each had our own thing.
Your own bunk?
Yeah.
In one big room or?
In compartments.
Compartments. And how was the food?
Good when you went to sea, but little by little it dwindled and you ended up on beans and...
Oh, because they couldn't always replenish?
Couldn't carry enough fuel.
Supplies.
Food along, yeah.
Wow. What sort of schedule was there? I mean, what did they have you do?
We had watches, and you served 8-hour watches, 4 and 4.
Where was it? Was the Bluefish was the name of your submarine?
Yeah, 222.
And where was that? Where did you?
It was built in New London, Connecticut, an electric boat company.
Was it new when you got on it?
Oh, yeah. I'm one of the what they call plank owners.
Yeah, what does that mean?
That means that you helped there for the building and the checking the boat to make sure everything was working right.
So from New London, then you sailed abroad? Do you say sailed for a submarine?
Yeah, why not?
Okay.
Bluefish left New London to go to through the Panama Canal, through Pitcairn Island, and then to Australia. We made our first patrol from Australia against the Japanese in the Sea of Japan.
So you got into the service in 42? Is that 1942?
Yeah, 42.
So the war had already been underway a little bit.
It was underway, yes.
So how long were you in Australia then? You stayed in Australia?
Approximately 3 years, and then we came in. I had been transferred then to another boat, and we came back into the United States to Mare Island, California, for refit. And during refit, my wife and I became married.
Yeah, that was quick, huh? You just...
Well...
when you had the chance, right?
Yeah, we had liberty for a little while.
Nice. And then you stayed in the States, stationed?
No. When the refit was finished, we went to sea again. I went to sea on the Ray, and
another submarine.
Yes. Through the end of the war.
Through the end, and she traveled back to the East Coast.
Came back to New London, Connecticut, and I was discharged from New London, Connecticut.
Now the Ray. Where did it sail?
Yeah, the Ray was built at Manitowoc, Wisconsin, and floated down the Mississippi on a barge.
Okay. But then when you worked on it and were stationed on it...
That was one of the later patrol.
But in the...
They had to change officers, captains.
But near Australia also?
In Australia.
Also?
Yeah, Manitowoc, Wisconsin. No, Manitowoc, Wisconsin, where the boat was built.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you feel in danger there in Australia?
In Australia,
waters?
no. We were treated very well in
really?
Australia. Yeah.
What are some other memories of serving over there?
Australia is ancient. A lot of farms and a lot of desert. And that's it.
You got onto land for
yes,
leave?
We were in Fremantle.
Fremantle.
We were refitted in Meadfield. That was our harbor.
Okay.
We got additional torpedoes and ammunition or whatever we needed from the tender.
And supplies of food and all that?
Yes, yeah.
So you were able to disembark during...
We'd get we'd have 2 weeks each time we came in for patrol. They'd have 2 weeks for refit and to go out again.
Oh, well now refit means resupplying it with...
Yeah, resupplying it, making any repairs, or the tender making repairs they can make.
And each day your duties were pretty much to check the engines and
I had to do some of the work that had to be done aboard
maintenance.
the maintenance, yes.
Were you fired upon? Were the submarines you were on
Well, yes.
in battle? Is that what you...
When you left,
Combat.
you went into combat. There's a... We'll give you the list of any ships were sunk.
Yeah, but so when you left Australia's harbor to go to sail where?
In the South China Sea, the Sea of Japan, Philippines.
Wow. Did you heard firing on your submarine? You had to defend yourselves?
Well, in firemen, you got to remember, submarines are traveling under the water, and destroyers and other ships are on the surface.
Right.
And those are who you are trying to sink, and they're trying to sink you.
Uh-huh. So how did that play out? You were firing on each other?
I'm back here
Thank
now,
God.
so
Thank goodness.
it played out.
It played out safely for you.
For me, yes,
Yeah.
but for every wait a second. We have it all spelled out there.
It says that you had 3 patrols on the Bluefish.
Yes, and then I did service on the tender, and then I volunteered for the Ray.
Now, why did you switch boats, submarines?
Well, they needed men with some diesel experience on the tender.
On the Ray?
No, on the tender, the Orion. Her name was Orion.
So you stayed on the Ray for 8 patrols, it says.
Yeah, I joined the Ray, and I stayed on her till the end of the war.
And each time it went back to harbor at Australia's...
Well, it depends on where we were near.
What you were near, okay. Do you recall what kind of friendships and camaraderie you formed while serving, and with whom?
Well, a submarine is like somebody's little home, and you live with all the guys, and you know who they are, and there were little changes once in a while, but most of the time the fellows stayed aboard the same ship.
So you got along and you became friendly with each other?
Yeah, but they came from all over the country, remember?
Yes. How many on a submarine? 150, you said?
No, it was 159.
159. So you were in combat at times. Did you?
All the time.
All the time. Did you witness casualties or destruction or?
Well, remember, this is a submarine.
Yeah.
Remember?
Yeah.
We don't.
You don't see anything.
You don't see anything. There's no windows.
No.
You know.
But your submarine could fire torpedoes?
Torpedoes, 6 from the forward torpedo rooms, and 4 from the stern.
What you were firing at?
Enemy ships.
Enemy ships.
Yeah.
Japanese mainly?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
We tried to get as many oil carrying ships, because remember, Japan is an island, and everything has to be brought into Japan. And the reason we were taking that attitude was to try to prevent any food or fuel to enter Japan. So that was our responsibility.
I see. Now, how did you stay in touch, especially on a submarine, with family and friends?
When you surfaced, you didn't stay in touch with your family and friends. You wrote letters.
Yeah.
And you left them on the tender, and the mail was shipped from the tender.
Oh, I see. And you received mail from family and friends?
Periodically, yes.
Yeah. must have taken a while.
It did take months.
Months.
Yeah.
So the mail was shipped or flown?
I guess shipped.
And what did you do for recreation or when you were off duty?
You went ashore,
Went ashore.
as best you could.
And what did you do there on land?
Well, we were at the beach, of course. Mm-hmm. You could use that if you want to, but the Salvation Army had, in Australia, had set up 3 areas for recreation and.
Oh, for the troops, for the American troops?
Well, for any of the troops, but basically American troops, yeah.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Did you eat in Australia too?
Well, yes, but things are a little different there.
Like how so?
Well, you don't get any beef. You end up with lamb or chickens and pig, that sort of thing, pork. Yeah.
Do they eat kangaroo? Kangaroo?
Oh, no. They stay out in the desert.
Oh, I see. Now, when the war ended, you were back in the States, or?
No, I was in Australia when it ended, and we came back to the States. Came back to New London, yeah.
You came back to New London, and then your service was done, or?
It was finished, yeah.
Did you want to re-up?
Well, no, there was a job waiting for me at Bankers Trust Company.
Oh, nice.
And a wife and a baby.
Oh, nice. Now, let's go back a little. You said you went to school at night when you worked in the bank as a very young person.
Yeah,
Did you go to college after?
After that, I went to 2 different schools, the American Institute of Banking and Stonia Graduate School of Banking, Rutgers University.
Oh, and there you got your bachelor's, or?
Yeah.
That was after you came back?
Oh, yeah, that was a number of years.
Oh, what did you do when you came back?
I worked in the banking and was promoted from one department to the next.
Now, how did you get from the submarine back to New London?
On the submarine.
Oh, they sailed the submarine back home?
Yeah, oh yeah.
How long can that go before you need more fuel, a submarine?
Because the patrols usually lasted about the better part of 3 months.
Wow.
So we had enough fuel.
You must have had huge
Well,
tanks.
remember
that
when you submerge, you're traveling on batteries.
Oh.
And when you surface, you're running on traveling engine on diesel engines, and you're charging the batteries for when you're submerged.
Oh, I didn't know that. Huh.
Yeah.
Wow. Can you explain a little, like, how your daily routine was when you were on the submarine?
You stood by watches, and each man stood 4 watches off and then 4 watches on.
How long is a watch?
4 hours.
Wow.
Yeah.
How do you stay awake?
You do.
You do. You're watching for enemy submarines?
No, you're taking care of the equipment. You remember a submarine? When you're on a dive, the fellow looking out of the periscope is the only one who's seeing anything.
Oh, I see. You can't see it. Oh, there's only one periscope?
Well, that's all you need, yeah.
Oh. So that person it's continually rotating, so you see everything?
No, from time to time. And when you're on the surface, 4 seamen go onto the bridge, and they watch what's going on, and the duty officer is up there. But the men serving duty on submarine stay below decks in the compartments or wherever their work is.
Now, going back to coming home, how were you received by your family and community?
They were happy to see me back.
Sure.
Yeah.
How old was that was your first baby that was there?
Yeah, well, I was home 7 days, I think, when she was born.
Oh, you were home when she was born?
Yeah, I had gotten back.
Oh,
yeah.
That's nice. That was in 45?
Yeah.
How long you continued at Bankers Trust, and that's where you spent your professional career?
Yeah, for real, yeah.
how did you feel about readjusting to civilian life?
You had no choice. You
no
just
choice.
adjusted.
I
was happy that for me there was work waiting for me.
Yeah.
A lot of my shipmates that called me on the phone that couldn't get work.
Really?
They had to take anything they could get, so I was very fortunate.
Yes.
Bankers Trust Company had held the job open for me, and when I came in, they said take another month off, get adjusted, and then
nice.
They were very good. Yes.
Very nice. Have you kept in touch with any of your fellow veterans at all?
Not at all. You got to remember, I'm 90.
Wow.
Over 90 years of age.
You look wonderful.
Yeah. Well, I hope so. Yeah.
So in the past, did you get together with any?
We went. My wife and I took vacation to Hawaii and stayed with a man who was a captain of the Ray.
Was that Kinsella?
Admiral Kinsella. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Ended
nice.
up. We had a great time.
Nice.
His wife was very much like my wife, and good sense of humor, and we enjoyed ourselves.
When was that? Do you remember?
I don't remember the dates, but it was in the 70s sometime.
The 70s? Okay. Okay. So, are you a member of any veterans organizations?
No, I had enough to do.
I'm sure. Yeah.
I went to school at night for banking and what have you, and I was.
And you moved way up in the banking industry.
I made to vice president. Yes.
Vice president of Bankers Trust.
Yeah.
Wow. How long were you in that position?
Speak up, didn't I?
35
years.
35 years.
With
wow.
the bank. But
was that in New York?
Not in that. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It's.
Now, when you, do you recall when you retired? What year was that?
Well, my wife was beginning to suffer from Alzheimer's, and I thought I took an early retirement to spend some time with her.
So, in 2000 sometime, yeah. That's okay. Now, how do you think your wartime experiences affected your life?
Let me put it this way, I have 3 sons. I'm glad that the 3 sons were able to stay home and not experience it.
Yeah. But do you feel in danger most of the time you served over there?
Well, it depends. If everything was fine and you were on the surface, it was okay. When you were diving or when you were in combat, then it wasn't too great.
Yeah. I mean, I would have been afraid. I guess
after we came home and the Ray was refitted, we went out again. And that time we were fitted with additional guns, 40 millimeter surface guns, to fight Japanese airplanes. Now we were a submarine and we weren't trained or built to fight on the surface.
To use the guns, you mean?
And for that matter. So when we would get a radio transmission that one of the Army's planes had gone down off Japan or wherever we were located at the time, we would go to try to pick them up if we could. President Bush was one of the ones that were picked up by one of our other submarines.
No kidding, wow.
Yeah. So when we surfaced, that was when we became a surface ship.
How long did that take to get from where you were to, of course?
Well, it depended. If you were traveling under the water, it was slow. If you were traveling on the surface, it was like any other surface boat. But our job, so we learned how to deal with the Japanese aircraft that were trying to shoot the fellas in the water and that, and we picked up, I think, 27 of them.
Wow, of American soldiers.
Well, whatever it was.
Yeah, the Allies.
Allied, yeah.
Wow. What life lessons have you learned from military service?
Stay out of it.
Yeah, good. I mean, did you feel afraid?
Well, yeah. I think most people become frightened.
Especially in such an enclosed environment. I guess you don't think about it when you're doing it.
You're busy what you're doing.
Right.
What you're doing.
Very busy.
Yeah.
And you picked submarines, so you wanted to do that.
I wanted to do that, yes.
That's amazing. How has your military service impacted your feelings about war and
Well,
the military?
war is a waste of time, money, and young men's lives. And why are we? And then the politicians sit down and just after they've killed enough people, they end, which doesn't make any sense at all to me.
Should be the other way around. Talk first.
Let's talk, and then
What about how do you feel about the military in general?
I really don't know the military because I spent all my time on submarines.
Do you have is there anything that you did that you regretted while you were in the service?
While I was in the service, no. Once I got out of the service, I regretted all the time I lost.
From being in the service?
From being in the service, I lost 4 years of my life,
Huh.
and I felt that was a waste.
Did any of your comrades re-enlist after?
Some of the fellows, because they couldn't when they came home, there was no job waiting for them. They stayed in the service for at least they had room and board.
Right. When you re-enlist like that, how much time is?
Well, you usually go in for 4 years.
4 more years.
Yeah.
Is there no? So how about when you were in the service? Were you injured at all?
No, not really. A little shrapnel, but nothing to speak of.
How did that happen?
Well, we were sinking a Japanese ship, and they let go of some fire and hit a stanchion on the back of the boat, and the shrapnel, of course, went all over the place.
You were above the water?
We were above the water at that time. The so-called battle was over, and we were going alongside, and they, of course, didn't want to be taken. They jumped overboard to swim away. And
Really?
so leaving the boat, the guy there was another round, I guess, on a.
Wow. If a submarine gets hit with fire like that, and it's in the middle of the ocean, how do you repair that?
Well, you hope it doesn't get hit by submarines can't afford to be hit by. But this was all surface. This was on the surface.
So it didn't
didn't hit the tubes or the ballast. The ballast.
The ballast. What message would you like to leave for future generations who hear this or view this interview?
Oh, avoid war.
Yeah. Have you told your grandchildren your stories?
Not much.
Really? Oh.
They're busy living their lives.
Well, they need to know.
Yeah, well.
Now they'll know.
Now they know if they have any questions.
How did when you were serving, I was reading your bio, your parents were no longer alive. You were living with your aunt and uncle.
That's right, yeah.
So how did they feel about you enlisting?
Well, my uncle was deceased by then.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So I just decided that it was time for me to go. And
Now your sisters still must have been.
They were married.
They were married at the time.
Because they're both older than me.
Were they in New York or on the East Coast?
I think so, yeah.
Is there anything you feel we haven't discussed or you'd like to add? Some experiences out in the sea or in training?
Well, we stopped at Pitcairn on the way out, and no ships had stayed there. I'd spent there for 2 years, so they came in. So some of the boys from the pit came over, and this young fella came over with these fish, and he wanted any kind of toweling, or they had no clothes. They'd run out on Pitcairn. So I had a toweling wrapped up, so I exchanged these two fish for
Oh,
his,
oh wow, they're
with the towel,
beautiful.
yeah.
He had made them?
by hand, yeah.
How old do you think he was?
He's 18, 19, something like that.
Wow, they're really beautiful. And that's the type of craft that they did on the islands?
Yeah, well, they tried to trade, if ships came by, they tried to trade, but nothing came by there
Oh,
for 2 years because of the war.
the war.
Yeah.
Wow. You didn't have any, the Australian citizens didn't, you interacted with them only when you were going on leave.
Well, we were in their seaports, so we were with them all the time. But you see, the English had taken most of their troops over to England. So the Australians were left there all by themselves, and they were really delighted to have Yanks
Really, to help defend
come
them.
in. Yeah.
So there was danger in Australia too,
Oh yeah.
from the Japanese?
The Japanese had an idea that when they were finished with us at Pearl Harbor, they would then take over Australia,
Oh wow.
which of course didn't happen. But
Were there Australian ships and submarines defending the
not
coast?
that, as far as I know, no.
So Australia wasn't really in the war.
They were in the war, but they didn't they weren't involved in it. Up in Darwin was a major port.
What was it called?
Darwin,
Uh-huh.
and what the Aussie had was pretty much up in there, and American ships would refuel and what have you.
So just the
Darwin.
fact that the American ships were there was some defense
Yeah.
of the country.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The submarine force was really divided up into two forces, one to protect us, South California shores and what have you, and the others were to eliminate any shipment of guns, supplies, food, fuel into Japan.
Uh-huh.
That's what we spent our time doing.
Do you know about how many submarines there were there in that area?
Well, of our submarines, yes.
Oh, yeah.
There's
249 submarines in the Pacific.
yeah.
Wow. And 52 boats were lost.
Yes. For every man that was lost in the Army, we lost 5 submarine sailors.
Wow.
See, remember, you won't see any submarine sailors in a hospital. They're either back or they're not.
Wow.
Because when submarines are lost, the ship is lost, the ship, and the men aboard it.
When they're lost, does that mean they were hit by enemy fire? And
Not necessarily. So when you're aboard a submarine, at least they've changed them some now. But at that time, there's no windows, remember.
Right.
So the only time you can see something is when you surface and you put the periscope up.
Right.
And then you can see what's around. Otherwise, you have to travel underwater and hope you don't hit anything that's down there. People don't realize, they look at the beach and they think that under the ocean it's the beach, it's nice, it's not. It's no different than it is on shore. You have hills and valleys and mountains and thing, and you run into a mountain. That's
under
the end
ocean. Under the sea.
If you're looking at the ocean, it's nice and flat.
Yes.
But when you get down under the water, you have all the same development that you have on land. So if there's a mountain in your way, you'll run into it. You don't see it.
Well,
so
how can they be steered? Who steers them then?
Well, you go very slow, and you try to stay where the maps tell you that there's deep water. Mm-hmm. The only problem is we didn't have too many maps of the areas that we were in.
How come?
We didn't.
Oh, they didn't exist?
We had surface,
oh.
but we didn't have maps.
Under the terrain under the sea.
Under the sea.
I see.
So we tried to, wherever we went, we took readings with our depth gauge and kept telling. When we came into port, we turned them in and they were put on other charts for other boats that went out. So as time went by, so we don't know how many submarines were lost in action or how many ran into something down below sea, yeah.
Did you have comrades on other submarines that you knew?
Well, yeah, the fellas that you knew from when you came into port.
Okay. And
Yeah.
some of them made it and some didn't?
And some of them made it. There was one fella that I was very fond of that went through school with me. Maurice Belady, his name was, came from Pennsylvania. And it turns that his father owned a little store, a newspaper store, candy store, what have you, and passed away early. Mm-hmm. So he was at school and he would help his mother. Mm-hmm. Well, he joined the Navy Force because of the pay. Uh-huh. And he was on a sister ship. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm very sad because every time I think something, that ship didn't come back. Oh. So I went, you think of his mother. Yeah. She's all alone now. Yeah. Wow. And now that happened over and over again. Really? And you tried, like when Dottie and I got married, mm-hmm. my aunt and her mother wanted us not to get married until after the war was over. Oh, why? But Dottie wanted to get married, and she was her father's pet, so mm-hmm. we didn't have any trouble. We got married. You did, yeah. But then, how long before you came? How long was she alone then, your wife, while you were? She was after you were married. With her family. I mean, without you. What was it? 19 years. 9 months. 9 months. Huh? 9 months. 9 months. 9 months. Well, it was more than that. It was more than 9 months. Was she? It was about 12.
Well, after we got married.
Yeah.
And she was living with the family?
She was living with her family.
Her family?
Yeah.
Was she working, do you know?
No, I don't think so, no.
How old was she when you got married?
She was 19. Mm-hmm. And I'm 4 years older than her. Oh, okay.
So back to the submarines, when a submarine was hit, they would be hit under the sea, perhaps, by another
usually.
torpedo?
They call them depth charges. Surface ships carry depth charges, which they pushed off the back, and the ash cans went down and exploded under the water. Mm-hmm. And what they tried to do is get the depth charge underneath the submarine, mm-hmm. because that's where the damage would be done. The depth charges didn't bother the surface too much. It shook you up a lot, but that was about all.
But it didn't do damage.
No, not too much. Mm-hmm. There wasn't much on the deck to be damaged, so it was all right. But
what a scary thing.
Yeah, you get used to it.
And was it very loud?
Oh yeah. See, that's another trick. Submarines, you don't make any noise on submarines because sound carries underwater a great distance. Oh, so the enemy could hear you? Yeah, it could determine where you was. Wow. Only by sound. Oh, wow. So you tried not to, so that was it. Most of the time you tried to be quiet? All the time you were quiet. No kidding. If the greatest way to get off a submarine was to drop a spoon or something. No. Yeah, and really? The rest of the boat came over, and the rest of the guys and get them out of here. So what about talking or playing cards? Oh no, talking and that. You kept everything nice and quiet. You just try to avoid touching metal. Oh, I see. And that was. How did they cook? Well, was there cooking going on? Oh, there's cooking going on, but that's while you're not in action. I see. While you're in port. Well, or at sea, not in action. But when you're in. Who would have thought? I never thought about that. Well, submarines, people don't realize, but submarines try to travel at 100 feet or 200 feet. Once you get over there, you begin to hear the nuts and bolts complaining because the water it's getting deep. The pressure? The pressure is pressure. I can't tell you. I don't know because we didn't know how deep you could go. But one thing you're pretty sure of, anytime they got below 400 feet, it was all over. What? Too much pressure? The boat would be crushed, yeah. And of course you can't. Coming up from, it takes about 20, 25 minutes to come up from 100 foot underwater. Really? That was one of the tests going into the submarine school. They had rope with knots on the rope. every 10 feet. And you stopped coming up on the rope at 10 feet, you held on and counted to 10 before you went to the next 10 feet. And you had on what do you call it?
A wetsuit?
What? Nunchador. Lungson is what they was called.
A lung?
Yeah, and when you were outside, you filled it with air and what have you, and you went in, and you had to be accepted at the school. You had to come up from at least 50 feet.
Did you feel? How did that feel?
Oh, it felt tight, but you know enough to come up slowly.
Slowly.
Even from 100 feet, you would take your time.
Otherwise, you get a headache, or
well, yeah. Otherwise, you get pressure from it bothers some people. It doesn't bother others as much. But
were quite a few people weeded out of that during that training?
We never knew.
Oh.
I mean, most of the fellows knew enough that they would take the necessary test, at 50 feet, and that was all that was necessary. Because actually carrying the munchin lungs didn't do you much good, because you were going to get to use them anyway.
Why?
If something to happen.
Oh.
Because of water pressure.
Oh.
So that's now submarines today are a little different, of course. They've improved on them.
Can they go deeper?
I guess deeper, faster.
Faster.
They don't talk about it.
Oh, we're not supposed to know.
SS, silent service.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Wow.
When we were visiting with the Admiral on the base, he and I were going to go over and see one of the new boats will come in. And when we got to the new boat that we were going to see, the captain of the new boat came out, and he excused himself, but nobody was allowed aboard.
Really? Huh. Well, yeah. But everybody who connected with the ship would know.
Would know if you were aboard it.
Yeah.
Well, and we had pretty much the same situation when we were in port. We didn't have any visitors or anything like that. Nobody came aboard. No.
Not allowed.
No, when the Bluefish was commissioned, Dorothy was my fiancée, and she and my aunt came up to New London for the commissioning of the boat. But other than that, and the boat was out there someplace.
So they weren't allowed on the ship?
No, they didn't. Well, you know, a submarine has pipes, 4 big pipes. That's how you get aboard.
What do you mean?
You have to open the hatch at the top and go down the boat.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And go down a ladder to get onto the boat.
Okay.
So, except when you're on the surface, there's usually 4 seamen up in what they call the conning tower, who watch to see what's happening and report down below. And usually the diving officer is up there as well. Otherwise, everybody's below water.
When it moved, you felt the movement like on a ship?
Not very much.
No, not so much.
Not much, no. In some storms, we would go down to like 200 feet, and you'd hardly know that there was a storm up there.
Really?
See, people don't understand. The water on the surface is traveling one way. Water beneath the surface is traveling another way. Wherever you have to account for that. The navigator on a submarine has a lot of work to do.
I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Anything else we haven't discussed that you'd like to add? Are we good? You're good?
Huh?
You're good?
Oh, I'm good.
Covered everything?
He's the one who wanted to come.
Well, I'm so glad you did, and I want to thank you so much for your service.
You see, I must tell you this. Years ago, I buried this.
Oh, I'm sure.
And I went on with my banking career.
Yes.
And my family and everything else. And one of the questions is, I purposely didn't join any of the veterans clubs because I had enough of it.
I see.
I didn't want any more.
Yeah.
you know.
Oh, that's understandable.
See, so I mean, a lot of the fellas, those that you met, hadn't gone overseas,
Right.
and were making a whole big deal of it, and this you didn't want.
Yeah.
You had enough.
Yeah.
You know, and
Yeah.
it's not a wonderful thing. It's
Right.
an unhappy time.
Why did you want to enlist?
Well, for like most of the fellas, on a submarine force, you get base pay plus another 50%
Oh, wow.
of your base pay. You have 20% sea duty and another 17 clothing allowance. So you're getting twice the pay.
I see.
And in the submarine force, you advance rather quickly.
Really? Why is that?
Because they need more men all the time.
Really?
They're losing the guys up front, you know. So
You
that
think
was.
most people don't want to be on a submarine? Is that
It was
part
hard.
of-
Fellas decided no. They, like you say, you're frightened. A lot of people don't want to go underwater or near the water.
Yeah, yeah. Huh.
See, but that I had a couple of friends who wanted to get on submarines in the worst way,
Really?
and we used to talk about it. And you know, when you're 18, 19, 20, this is all very exciting.
An
exciting.
adventure. Yeah.
It's an adventure.
Yeah.
Which and you don't want to go in. One thing, you don't want to get into the army. All you can think of is just the mud and and the heck with that. You don't want any part of that.
Yeah.
Why do guys join the Air Force?
Huh.
But it's basically the same reason.
Yeah.
And they were they were young men. And the submarine force, they were all young men. The officers in the submarine force were there because of promotion.
Ah.
On surface ships, promotion came very slow. On the submarine, promotions were very fast.
Yes.
Whenever you see the president up with the guys in uniform, if they have blue uniforms on, they have dolphins. That's the submarine force.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
wow.
it's.
Huh. It
Yeah.
sounds almost pretty elite because there are not that many that want it.
Oh, no, and it's an elite force. You have to be pretty sharp to be able to. Admiral Nimitz's son was on the first boat I was on.
Yeah.
Fabulous navigator. And he spent the better part of the day at a table, contending with the different temperatures of the water and
Oh, figuring out?
figuring out to get us where we were going. Yeah, and the captain of that boat was George Porter. Porter's great-grandfather back was the lieutenant in charge of the section of one of the Navy checks that defeated the Barbary pirates.
Oh, wow.
So these are the men that we had on the boats.
Wow.
Brooks Herald, who was captain of the boat on the Ray, he was relieved because he had a heart attack.
Oh, gee.
And they wouldn't let him go to sea.
Uh-huh.
Well, nobody wanted to. Nobody wanted anybody with a toothache, you know.
Right, right. Yeah, what happens if someone gets really sick on the ship?
There's a what do you call him?
A doctor?
No doctor. I don't remember. Pharmacist mate aboard, and he was his responsibility was to, if you got a cut or you hurt yourself or something,
He
to
could help
you.
out, yeah.
Yeah, every boat had at least one on board.
But mostly they were younger men. They didn't get really
Oh no,
sick.
they were guys my age. They were.
Yeah.
And you had 3 cooks. Sometimes you got 4
Oh,
on board. The captain, Kinsella, liked his food and his ice cream and stuff, and he managed to get a fella aboard who knew how to make nice cakes and stuff.
Oh.
And, yeah.
nice.
And any time we came in, the next thing you knew, the admiral came aboard to visit. Yeah.
Because of the food?
I think so. The food, yeah.
That's great.
But it's a different kind of. Everybody's friends.
Yeah.
They're families.
Nice.
And
Nice.
like the people in Australia, it was nice when you went on Liberty. Everybody was your friends.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah, they're
Nice.
nice, very nice people. The ladies were all picking potatoes in the fields up there while their husbands were in the bar. Yeah. That's Australia.
Well, thank you very much, Bill. I really appreciate, we appreciate your service and for you sharing all your memories. Thank you so much.
Yeah.